Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the fascinating chronological journey of Donald Trump's life. We're going to objectively trace his path, looking at everything from his family's humble roots across the Atlantic, all the way to his unprecedented rise to the highest political office in the United States. It's a massive story, really, one of ambition, showmanship, wild financial swings, and the absolute power of modern media. To make sense of it all, we've structured our timeline into 5 distinct eras: roots of the empire, Queens to military academy, Manhattan deals and mentors, the entertainment pivot, and finally, entering the political arena. Let's jump right in. Section 1. Roots of the Empire. Our story actually begins not in the towering skyscrapers of New York, but across the Atlantic. It's a classic immigrant story, but obviously with a pretty massive twist. In 1930, Donald Trump's mother, Anne MacLeod, emigrated from a tiny Gaelic-speaking fishing village in Scotland. She arrived in New York and actually worked as a domestic maid in the Carnegie Mansion. Just a few years later, she marries Fred Trump, who was this incredibly hardworking New York builder already making a real name for himself. They settle down in Queens, and in 1946, Donald is born. Now, Fred was a very demanding figure. He affectionately but tellingly used to call his son a killer and a king. There is such a striking contrast between father and son here. Fred Trump built a very pragmatic, steady fortune by constructing and operating middle-income apartments out in the boroughs of Queens and Brooklyn. But Donald? He developed a vastly different vision. He honestly wasn't interested in the outer boroughs. He was completely captivated by the prestige of Manhattan. His whole approach would eventually center on luxury high-rises, high-stakes financial risk, and of course, massive public showmanship. But that aggressive approach didn't just come out of thin air. Fred instilled a profound toughness in his sons very early on. Donald actually remembers being taken along on these rent collection trips in some pretty tough neighborhoods. He learned quickly that you absolutely had to be tough to survive in business. It ingrained in him this lifelong worldview that the world is a dangerous, zero-sum place where you either dominate or you submit. Moving on to Section 2, Queens to Military Academy. This innate competitive drive soon required a much more structured outlet. So young Donald was, well, notoriously rambunctious. After a series of behavioral incidents, including reportedly punching his second-grade music teacher because he didn't think the guy knew anything about music, his parents decided he needed some serious discipline. At age 13, they sent him away to the New York Military Academy. And the interesting thing is, rather than rebelling against that strict drill sergeant environment, he actually thrived in it. He learned exactly how to command respect in a highly competitive, hyper-masculine space. Following his success as a star athlete and student leader at the military academy, he moved on to higher education. During the Vietnam War era in the late 60s, he utilized college and medical deferments, ultimately transferring to the prestigious Wharton School of Finance at the University of Pennsylvania. He graduates in 1968 with an economics degree, and he's officially ready to join the family business full-time. Which brings us to Section 3, Manhattan Deals and Mentors. By 1971, Donald takes control of his father's company and immediately sets his sights on Manhattan. This was his first massive Manhattan victory. You have to remember, New York City in the 1970s was really struggling with bankruptcy and decay. But Trump saw a golden opportunity in the dilapidated Commodore Hotel right next to Grand Central Station. Using his father's political clout and his own immense showmanship, he pulls off the seemingly impossible. He convinced a financially strapped city to grant him an unprecedented 40-year tax abatement. We're talking roughly $400 million in value over his lifespan. He partners with Hyatt, wraps the old brick building in a sleek glass facade, and boom, the spectacular Grand Hyatt is born. He quickly follows that up with an absolute icon, Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue. Completed in 1982, it was this flashy brass and glass monument to luxury, complete with a 6-story pink marble atrium and a cascading waterfall. This wasn't just a building, right? It was a towering advertisement for Donald Trump himself. It totally cemented his reputation as the city's most recognizable, bold, and controversial developer. But to navigate this high-stakes world, he really needed a guide. A crucial mentor during this Manhattan expansion was the notoriously aggressive lawyer Roy Cohn. Cohn had made his name as a ruthless hatchetman for Senator Joseph McCarthy back in the 1950s. Trump was just mesmerized by Cohn's unabashed pursuit of power, his absolute love for the tabloid spotlight, and his total refusal to apologize or back down, no matter what legal trouble he was in. For instance, when the U.S. Justice Department sued the Trumps in 1973 for allegedly discriminating against black renters, Cohn gave his protege a piece of advice that became a lifelong strategy. He essentially said, "Tell them to go to hell." Cohn taught Trump to never admit defeat, to file massive countersuits, like the $100 million countersuit they immediately threw right back at the government, and to weaponize negative press to his advantage. It was literally a masterclass in aggressive legal survival. Moving into the late 80s and early 90s, Trump rapidly expands his empire. He's heavily borrowing to buy airlines, the Plaza Hotel, and massive casinos in Atlantic City. But by 1990, the real estate market tanks, and his highly leveraged empire begins to crumble. He amasses a staggering $3.2 billion in debt. Wall Street banks actually had to step in with bailouts just to prevent a total collapse, and highly touted properties, like the Taj Mahal Casino, were forced into bankruptcy. Section 4. The Entertainment Pivot. Facing a near-total financial and reputational collapse, Trump engineers what might be his most brilliant maneuver yet. Instead of retreating, he leans in. He realizes that the Trump name itself was a massive asset, completely regardless of what his balance sheet looked like. He keeps his name in the public eye through a relentless barrage of pop culture appearances. We're talking movie cameos in Home Alone 2 and Zoolander, sitcom appearances like The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, starring in National Pizza Hut commercials, and even getting into professional wrestling storylines with the WWE. He basically made himself omnipresent. In 2004, all of that media groundwork culminated in The Apprentice. Every single week, millions of Americans tuned in to see Trump sitting at the head of a boardroom firing contestants. The show's opening perfectly packaged his lifelong worldview, declaring business as a dangerous, winner-takes-all jungle where only the toughest survive. It effectively wiped away the memory of his 1990s bankruptcies and completely recast him as the ultimate, infallible billionaire boss. This pivot to entertainment was an incredibly effective business strategy. By playing the decisive boss on TV, he salvaged his reputation and completely shifted his business model. Instead of borrowing billions of dollars to build skyscrapers, he simply licensed his famous name to other developers around the world. He collected massive fees to slap the Trump name on golf courses, steaks, and hotels. He minimized his own financial risk while totally maximizing his global brand presence. Finally, Section 5, Entering the Political Arena. This carefully curated media image of a wealthy, uncompromising turnaround expert would eventually serve a historic purpose. This is a really fascinating finding from researchers. Studies indicate that the mediatized spectacle and the highly authoritative America's boss persona that he perfected over a decade on reality TV wasn't just harmless entertainment. It directly and significantly boosted his vote share during the extremely crowded 2016 Republican presidential primary. Voters felt like they already knew his leadership style right from their own living room screens. So as we wrap up this explainer, we're left with a pretty profound question to consider. How does a life built entirely on relentless showmanship, raw survival tactics learned from mentors like Roy Cohn, and the polished glow of reality television permanently alter the landscape of global politics? It really is a testament to the power of branding, media, and unyielding ambition. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. I hope you found this structured look at the history as fascinating as I have.